Most people think strength is loud, fast reactions, strong opinions, immediate responses. But real strength looks different. It's calm, perfectly calm, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is happening and you're still in control. Emotional stability isn't about suppressing emotion, it's about managing it. Because emotion isn't the problem, reaction is. Most people don't realize how quickly they lose control, not in obvious ways, in small ones. A tone shifts, a comment lands wrong, a situation creates pressure, and without thinking, they react. Not because they chose to, but because it felt automatic. That's where control breaks. Because once you react, you're no longer deciding. You're responding from emotion, and emotion is fast. Faster than logic, faster than clarity, faster than control. This is why calm matters. Calm creates space, and in that space, you get your decision back. Now let's talk about pressure. Pressure doesn't create problems, it reveals them. When things are easy, anyone can stay composed. But under pressure, your default shows up. If your default is reaction, you react. If your default is control, you pause. That pause is everything. Because under pressure, your decisions matter more. And the faster you react, the worse those decisions tend to be. This is where communication breaks down. Most people don't communicate. They react out loud. They interrupt, defend, over-explain, push their point. And none of that improves the situation. Because communication isn't about winning, it's about clarity. And clarity requires control. Controlled communication is slower, more deliberate, more focused. It listens first, then responds, and that changes everything. Because when you're not reacting, you're choosing. And people notice that. Not consciously at first, but over time. It builds something. Trust. People trust stability. They trust consistency. They trust someone who doesn't lose control when things get difficult. That's where real strength becomes visible, not through intensity, but through steadiness. There's another layer most people miss. Emotional instability doesn't just affect how you feel, it affects how people see you. People are always watching how you respond. Not just what you say, but how you say it. How quickly you react, how steady you stay, how you handle pressure. And over time, they form a picture of you, not based on your intentions, but based on your reactions. If you react quickly, emotionally, unpredictably, people start to expect that from you. They become cautious, less open, more guarded, because they don't know how you'll respond. But when you're stable, calm, controlled, the opposite happens. People trust you, not because you say the right things, but because you respond the right way. And that trust compounds. Now here's where it goes deeper. Emotional instability doesn't just show up in big moments, it shows up in small ones. Interrupting people, rushing responses, reacting to tone instead of content. These small reactions seem insignificant, but they add up, and over time, they become your pattern. That's how habits form, not through big decisions, through small repeated behaviors, and emotional reactions are no different. If you react quickly often enough, it becomes automatic. You don't even notice it anymore, but others do. This is why awareness matters, because you control what you don't notice, and most people don't notice until after they've already reacted. That's too late. Control happens before the reaction, not after. This is where training becomes important. You don't become emotionally stable by thinking about it. You become stable by practicing it. In real moments, small moments, daily situations. Someone interrupts you, pause. Something frustrates you, pause. You feel pressure, pause. That pause is the training. Because every time you interrupt the reaction, you weaken the habit. And every time you choose your response, you strengthen control. Over time, that becomes your default. Not reacting, choosing. And once that becomes automatic, everything changes. Your decisions improve. Your communication improves. Your relationships improve. Because you're no longer reacting to situations. You're operating within them. And that's a completely different level of control. There's also something else that shifts. Your internal state. When you're constantly reacting, your mind stays active, tense, restless, always processing something. But when you slow down your responses, your mind slows down too. You think clearer. You feel more stable. You don't carry unnecessary tension. Because you're not feeding every emotion with action, you're letting it pass. And that reduces mental noise, which increases clarity. And clarity is what leads to better outcomes. Not speed, clarity. So if you feel like you lose control in moments, don't try to fix everything at once. Start small. One pause, one delayed response, one controlled reaction. That's enough. Because control doesn't come from big changes. It comes from small interruptions repeated consistently. And over time, those small interruptions become strength. Not loud strength, not visible strength, but real strength. The kind that doesn't react, the kind that chooses. And that's what emotional stability really is. Not the absence of emotion, but control within it. If you can control your response, you control your outcome. And that is strength.